Hello, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
Man, I'm so excited to have you. I follow you on Facebook and different places. And one of the things I respect about you is how outspoken you are about what you believe in, what you're about, and you don't shy away from doing that. How did that come about?
It's interesting because, as of late, actually, I don't want to say I paid a price, but I do, because I'm outspoken about topics that are generally pretty sensitive and maybe even politically incorrect, for lack of a better term. I definitely get my share of heat on many different topics. But you know what? I said to myself, for example, the topic of mental health, right? I feel like because of this pandemic, everyone's suffering. I mean, the statistics are insane. I said to myself, I could be like everyone else and sweep it under the rug, or I can use my platform to talk about it. I'm like, you know what? What do I have a platform for? What do I have an audience for if we're not going to talk about things that other people don't talk about, So, yeah.
Yeah, we had Hillel Shipley on to talk about mental health, especially for Jewish men. It's so important with what's going on today. But, you're one of Israel's top marketers. You help Israeli, tech startups grow their business. And I think I probably listened to 5 podcasts that you've been on. I've watched videos where you've spoken. So I did a ton of research. First of all, because you made that one post about saying, if you don't do research on me, don't come and talk to me, right? But
I didn't say that. You're making me sound like a mean guy.
No.
I'm just saying, I get on the call. Listen, I get on the call with this company, and I'm like, from what I can understand, you guys are pretty early stage. You don't have budget, and so I said to them, I'm happy to help, but I don't think a formal engagement is relevant right now. And they're like, instead of giving us the bill, why don't you tell us what's on the menu? I'm like, well, why don't you go research the menu before you call me for asking for help? Am I crazy? I don't know.
Not at all. No, you're 100% right, especially with your accolades. But let's jump into it. What I want to talk to you about today is how you went from essentially, tech writing to one of the top marketers for startups in Israel. Then I obviously want to talk about anti-Semitism and some of the things that we want to dive into today. But how does a guy who started writing these boring manuals, as you state them, for products, become the number one marketer in Israel, where everybody is calling you to sit down and have a conversation with you?
So first of all, it's an interesting kind of I don't even know, differentiation, for lack of a better term, between tech writing and technical writing, right? Tech writing is writing about tech. Technical writing is writing user guides. So they're very different things. So I started my career, as you said, as a technical writer, writing user guides. And it was pretty much the most unoptimized, if that's a word, profession for a person with ADHD like myself. Boring as can be. Anyway, bottom line is I'm sitting at my desk one day 15 years ago, and I'm like, this is ridiculous. This is not what I should be doing in my life. And I just opened up a web browser and I started to write my thoughts about technology. Today we call it a blog. Back then I called it a diary. I didn't care who was reading it. There was no business model. There was no SEO. There was no ads. Just literally a cup of coffee and my thoughts on tech. And pretty quickly, entrepreneurs started to reach out to me, and they're like, listen, we read your article on trends in technology. We'd love to meet you. And I'm like, okay, I mean, I'm happy to meet, but major imposter syndrome. You're a CEO of a company. I'm some random dude. Why do you want to meet me? But I'm like, all right. And I meet these guys and I'm like, pitch me. What are you building? And they're talking about algorithms. And I'm like, bro, stop. What do you do? What value do you bring to this universe? And I found that these people really can't communicate. They build amazing products, but when it comes to building a business, it was very lacking. So I started to help them on the business side. Again, there was no monetization. This wasn't a job for me, and now in retrospect, I can tell you that back then what I was doing and I didn't know I was doing was I was establishing trust, right? I was helping these people. No one was paying me. So, I'm not a vendor. I'm not a salesman. I'm just trying to help. And a lot of these companies came back to me and they're like, listen, you helped us early on. Let's work together. And so I built myself a portfolio of companies. One might say a venture capital firm without capital. Kid in a candy store basically every day.
Amazing. Talked about building trust. Let's jump into that. How do you build trust when you're trying to build a brand? You help companies build, they trusted you. How does a company, we've got tons of Jewish guys listening from probably 18 countries at the moment. How does a brand build that trust so that the consumer can buy and purchase more product or service?
Well, for starters, there's an important kind of fundamental principle, and that is that business is not a zero-sum game. Let's just start with that, right? If you help someone in business, it doesn't necessarily mean you lose something. So for example, if an entrepreneur needs an introduction to a journalist, and I happen to know that journalist. So if I make that introduction, the startup gains, the journalist gains, and it took me 12 seconds. What did I lose? I lost nothing, right? What I did was gain credibility on both sides. And so that's the first principle. You have to forget everything you're told about business, that if you're giving someone something, you're losing. That's not the case. That's first of all. Second of all, my entire business philosophy is as follows. When I focus my time and resources on value creation, okay, and I know that that's a cliche word already, but let me just define that. It can mean anything. It can mean a connection to a journalist. It can be a connection to an investor. It can mean help with brainstorming. It can mean helping you know your competitors, whatever form the value takes. If I focus my time and resources on value and not on monetization, meaning you're not paying me a dime, you have no expectations. I owe you nothing. You're not paying me. Now, if you have no expectations, all I can do is exceed expectations. When I exceed expectations over and over and over again, what happens is I create delight. It's very delightful. These entrepreneurs are like, dude, you like what you just did for us is unbelievable. When they come to me with their hearts in their eyes, like in the cartoons, and they're in love with me and I'm indispensable to them, then we can talk money. Because anything that brings you delight in your life, a good cup of coffee, you'll pay for a good cup of coffee. So I'm in the business of delight. Let me help these entrepreneurs for free. What am I losing? I'm losing nothing. I'm helping them. I'm helping the other side. Let's have a good time. But when I do that and I show them what I'm capable of, what I can do for them, then they realize they need me. And then they come to me, and then I have the leverage. Then I define the terms. So that's my entire business philosophy. And, you know, I have to say, not to pat myself on the back here, but I haven't seen anyone else that's kind of capitalized on this concept of actually just being, for lack of a better term, a mensch, helping others, period. You help others win, you end up winning, full stop.
You think that came about from, you know, your upbringing? Obviously are you Orthodox Jew?
I am, yes.
Orthodox Jew. Did that come from your upbringing? I heard that you moved from New York to Yerushalayim. You were brought up Orthodox, and being that mensch, giving value. Does that come from a basis of value from what you learned from your parents?
Absolutely. So not only am I an Orthodox Jew, my dad is a rabbi, a very well-known educator in the Jewish world. He started the school SAR, or I shouldn't say he started it, but he was one of the first principals. Very well-known educator. And my mom is also a well-known educator. And so, yeah, I grew up in a home of giving 100%. Whether it's giving, you know, charity, whether it's giving community members help with whatever it may be, 100%. In fact, I never told the story publicly, but when my mom was pregnant with me on the holiday of Sukkot, we were in the sukkah, in the hut, and my dad smelled fire. And he went in the house and basically was blown down an entire set of stairs from the fire, and my house completely burnt down. Wow. My mom was pregnant with me. And after that happened, the entire community stepped up and basically took care of my parents, whether it was, you know, clothing, a place to stay. And I was literally like, one might say I was literally born into giving, right? Because my mom was pregnant with me and I was just surrounded by giving. Never really thought about it till this very second, but nice. It's an interesting concept. But yes, 100%. To answer your question, I was brought up in an environment of giving.
So when you give, obviously we give back. What I want to jump into also is you're very staunch in like Israeli tech startups, right? Like you love, is it because geographically you live in Israel, or is there just something about those tech startups there that means something to you?
Well, for starters, I love tech, period. Like any tech. Okay. That's number one. Number two, what's going on in Israel right now, I think that with all the hype and all the buzz about startup nation, quote unquote, people have no clue what's going on here. Okay. Let me just tell you that, first of all, let's just not forget Israel is a country smaller than New Jersey, in the worst neighborhood on earth. Yeah. Okay. And there is not a sector of technology. Listen carefully, because this is not something many people talk about, but there is not a sector of technology in which Israel is not a dominant player. And I'm using my words carefully here. I'm not saying we're number one, but we are a dominant player in every sector of technology, from healthcare to drones to AR to VR to blockchain to crypto to anything, you name it. And so a country this small, you know, with this many regional challenges, dominating the tech sector is just completely outrageous. And so, you know, you look at NASDAQ, the country with the most companies on NASDAQ is the United States of America. The number two country is China. Now, just to be clear, we're talking about 350 million people and 1.5 billion people. The third country, Israel, with 9 million people. Like, that doesn't make any sense. So how could I not be excited about Israeli tech? And so the reality is that, you know, I've written columns for years about impact technology in Israel, companies that are making the world a better place. It's endless, whether it's cancer research or mental health or ALS or whatever. It's completely nuts. And I've met some crazy cool companies in Israel that are like just mind-bending. So I'm, like I said, I'm a kid in a candy store. I get to meet the coolest people ever. And, you know, again, super imposter syndrome. I'm just going to be very, very like transparent. I literally wake up in the morning. I'm like, what did I do to deserve this? What have I done in my life? I just love tech. And, you know, I'm appreciating every second that I have kind of meeting these people, doing my thing, and actually able to support my family doing what I love. So it doesn't get much better than that.
From the CEOs that you work with and the companies that you work with, do you see that there's more success in going back to the value of giving when a company is based on changing the world, making, solving an issue? Do they make more money, or is it all about, let's build a business, let's just make a buck and move on? What do you see in the tech world?
I mean, for me, the companies that I love most are companies that do well by doing good, right? Whether it's, a company that I'm advising that basically built a platform for global volunteering. It's called Giving Way. And if you Google right now, for example, that you want to volunteer in some remote African village, you're going to come across 50 different agents that are going to charge you an arm and a leg to volunteer. You're like, I just want to volunteer. Why do I have to pay thousands of dollars to volunteer? So they built a platform, a marketplace. On the one hand, you have volunteers. On the other hand, you have those that need volunteers. Like I said, African villages, for example. And it's just a simple marketplace for volunteering. It's just an example. This company's doing incredibly well. The founders are insanely amazing people. And that's a perfect example of doing well by doing good. Those are the companies I love most.
Love it. Hillel, let's talk about being unapologetically yourself and Jewish on social media. You post pictures, you're in your talit and your tefillin. You are called on by different companies worldwide, and being I can't even say the word, unapologetically Jewish, unapologetically Jewish.
I feel like everyone has a word like that. For me, it's serendipitously. Is that the word? Serendipitously?
Gotcha, yeah.
I can never say it. Anyway, yeah, go on.
And it is who you are, and you bring that to the table. I'm going to guess when you are consulting and you're doing stuff, you're on this video wearing your kippah. How is that taking you from where you started to where you are today? Have you hit road bumps? Has anybody said like, "Oh, you're Jewish. Wait a second. This might not be a good idea"?
It's a great question. I'll tell you, not only has it not been an obstacle when you say, again, to be clear, I'm talking about my kippah, I'm talking about my Sabbath observance. I announce on the internet to hundreds of thousands of people that I'm signing off every Shabbat, and I give a piece of Torah over whatever. Not only has this not been an obstacle for me, but it's become part of my brand. I'll give you one example, but there are 100 examples. I was in Silicon Valley a couple of years ago meeting a guy named Bradley Horowitz, who's a senior vice president of Google. He's not Jewish despite his name. And I met him, and we were just meeting. It was a social meeting, just to kind of hang out and whatever. And I get to his office. The guy ordered me kosher sushi from outside of Silicon Valley, because those that have been in Silicon Valley know there's no kosher food there. And he knows from following me that I'm an observant Jew and strictly kosher. So the guy went out of his way to buy me kosher food. It's become part of my brand. I get messages from people saying, I haven't lit Shabbat candles in 40 years, but you're signing off posts, maybe start again. I had a message from a woman in LA saying, I've never kept Shabbat, but your faith posts maybe start this Shabbat. We kept our first Shabbat as a family. Like crazy stuff. So again, not only has it not been an obstacle, but it's helped me impact and hopefully inspire people. And it's 100% become part of my brand, just like my blogging, my podcasting, my vlogging. Those are part of my brand. My religion and my observance, my Judaism is part of my brand.
So being Israel's top marketer, let's talk about marketing. When somebody's marketing themselves, be it a real estate agent, be it a insurance agent, should that be part of their brand?
So for starters, I have to say, like, calling me Israel's top marketer, I mean, that makes me uncomfortable. I mean, there was a list of top marketers and I was number one on the list. I don't think it was necessarily Israel's top marketer, but that's just to be.
So we'll call you a good marketer. How about that? Good marketer.
So, I think, you're saying, should someone be proud of their Judaism if they're marketing themselves? Is that your question?
Yeah. Like, so if someone's a proud Jew, right? If someone's a proud Jew, they love their Zionists, love Israel. Should they be unapologetically Jewish like you are and say, hey, this is who I am and love me or hate me? Because a lot of guys hold it back because they don't want to get involved in politics. I don't want to talk about this. If my clients find out, I'd rather not.
Right. Again, my answer, obviously, but, I think actually, hiding part of your identity, not only is it ineffective because people can see right through you, but you know what? Like, you're not gaining anything. Like, sorry to be all heavy, but like, did Hitler care if you're an observant Jew or not? Like, it doesn't matter. You're Jewish, and so hiding it will not help you in any way, shape, or form. The anti-Semites are coming after you just like they're coming after me. You might as well be proud of your heritage. You might as well be proud of who you are and your identity. To hide it, it feels dirty to me. I don't know.
I love that. It feels dirty to me. Super deep. What's been the hardest?
Around my mic today. Holy smokes.
No, because I agree with you. Like you said, it feels dirty to me. There's a lot of us, I'm in San Diego, California, and the anti-Semitism is insane at the moment, everywhere in the country.
So sad, right?
It's horrible. It's horrible to think that people are going to hate my daughters who have done nothing wrong in their life just because of their background.
Yep. It's horrible. It's horrible. And it's hard to believe, to be honest with you. Like, it's hard to believe. I mean, we're in 2021. We grew up saying never again and thinking a Holocaust in the United States. Dude, people can't walk around with the Star of David in the streets. It's wild. Like, it happens so fast. It's just like totally nuts.
So what do you think we should do as Jewish men to be able to, one, kind of strengthen ourselves, and two, the connection with Israel? You live in Israel. The people who listen to the show love Israel. And when it comes to like a marketing standpoint, when it comes to we can build businesses, but how do we build ourselves up as a nation in order to be able to walk freely and not be afraid as some people are?
Yeah, I mean, again, I don't think there's a right answer here. I just think it's a question of being proud of who you are, and it's just, it's who you are. Like, you gotta be proud. And you know what? At the end of the day, I know this is a cliche, but at the end of the day, the truth prevails, and hatred disappears into the history books. The Nazis are no longer here. Ancient Greece is not here. The Romans are not here. The Jews are here. So, you can hate on us. You can do whatever you want, but we're gonna win. History proves it. We're gonna win.
Yeah, love that. Hillel, let me ask you this question, man. A lot of people come up to you to ask advice for businesses. What do you think is the biggest mistake that businesses are making today?
We started with the importance of research. The answer is research. I think, when I hear from an entrepreneur, we have no competitors, I think the meeting's over. Like, it's over. I mean, I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt and say that you're saying you have no competitors because you're defining a competitor wrong. But in most cases, it's just that the person didn't do the research. And so if a person says they have no competitors, there's really three options. One, they define a competitor wrong. Two, they didn't do research. Three, they're lying. Everyone has competitors. And if you don't have competitors, then go home, because that means there's no demand for what you're building. But too many entrepreneurs define a competitor as no one's doing exactly what I'm doing. And I'm like, I don't care if anyone's doing what you're doing. Who's targeting the same target audience as you with the same value proposition and the same pitch? They're your competitors. So if I'm building a social network for dog owners, those dog owners today are on Facebook. So Facebook's my competitor. Even though Facebook's not a social network for dog owners, it doesn't matter. You're not competing with Facebook on the product. You're competing with Facebook on attention, on market share. Where are those dog owners hanging out today? On Facebook, period.
And so the attention that you do, that you garner on Twitter and Facebook, how important is that attention when it comes to building the brand?
Say it again. I missed it. Say it again.
Sure. You brought up attention, right? And a lot of people don't want to go on Facebook, don't want to go on Twitter. I don't want social media, yet you garner tons of attention through it. Just like that, the brands should also be doing the same thing, correct?
Yeah. I mean, listen, all these people that say, where's our privacy? And listen, any technology can be abused, period. Forget technology, anything can be abused. I mean, is water bad because people can drown? Like, what? It's social, there's so much potential. Things have happened to me on a personal level that would just blow your mind on social networks. The people I was able to connect with, the impact I was able to. So don't disclose the things that you don't want people knowing. Like, that people say to me all the time, what about your privacy? I'm like, I only share things that I'm okay with people knowing. Obviously, I'm not sharing things that I don't want people to know. So let them know it. What do I care? There's no secrets here. And so, I think, obviously, to be, let's say, a strong presence on the video kind of world, whether it's YouTube or other platforms, you need to be comfortable on video, right? Audio is for some people and writing is for some people. You got to know where you're strong at. But again, I think social and just in general, the internet has so much to offer, and to not leverage that because of the downsides is just silly.
I love it. What's been the hardest part of your journey? I mean, you're a father, husband, businessman. What's been the hardest part of your journey?
The haters. I think I told my wife many times over the years, the more successful I get, the more visibility I get, the more haters they're going to be, and so there are always haters, whether it's the obvious ones who, comment on my political posts and say horrible things to writing horrible things about my late brother. I'm assuming you know that story.
Yeah.
And much worse, honestly. I don't want to necessarily get into details, but over the years I've had some pretty scary things happen to me on the internet. And it's kind of like, it's part of the package. There's nothing I can do about it.
Okay. Is it cool if we touch
scary,
on?
Though. It's definitely scary.
I can imagine. I see, these keyboard warriors saying some
Yep.
outrageous stuff to people that make you want to stop sometimes. Is it cool if we touch on your late brother a little bit?
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah. So I saw the story. I have an older brother. I don't know who's older, you or him.
Who's older, me or Ari?
Yeah.
He was older than me.
Oh, so I have an older brother, and when I saw that story, of course, obviously it hurt my soul for your family, for you, and for the man he was. What did you learn from your late brother that you take with you today?
Oh man, how long do we have? Listen, first of all, it's important to mention, it is important to mention, I think, that oftentimes people talk about terror victims. And by the way, for those listening that might not be familiar, my brother was Hillel Fuld, who was a 4th degree black belt and a true, like, old school warrior. Like, literally, the guy was like a beast. He was a beast. And a 17-year-old Palestinian kid, jumped him from behind and stabbed him in the main artery and murdered him. Ari then, literally, after he was stabbed in the main artery, he ran after the terrorist, jumped over a wall and shot the guy, for which he got the National Hero Award from the state of Israel. But, unfortunately, this is the way we work as humans. Unfortunately, after he was gone, the story started to pour in, and the appreciation for someone only grows when they're gone. It's just nature. But, unbelievable things. I would wake up at 4:00 in the morning. I'd see Ari debating some anti-Semite on Facebook. And I'd say to him, Ari, what are you doing? Go to sleep. What's wrong with you? You're not convincing this dude. And he said, it's not about him. It's about all the people watching this dialogue that were on the fence. And now I'm showing them the truth. So, I learned a ton from him. That's the truth. I learned true passion, but like really raw, true passion for the Jewish people and for the state of Israel. I learned truth, even though it's sometimes, not popular and sometimes, it's not diplomatic. You stick to the truth no matter what. For example, I don't want to get political right now, but like just a very basic thing. I'm just going to say one thing. You'll forgive me that I'm getting political, but like okay. Ari's main line always was, stop fabricating history. There was never in history an Arab Palestinian state. It did not exist. And so the world talking about occupying Palestinian land, when was Palestine, the Arab Palestine, established? Who was the prime minister? What was the currency? What was the language? What was the culture? It did not exist. And so he stuck to that, even though the world was like, oh, you occupy. It's BS. And so Ari was like, stop lying, and so that was his line. And I think the importance of truth, of sticking to the truth, is something I learned from him, among thousands of other lessons.
Love it. I just want to say, watching you and watching your brother, when I used to follow him, is a testament to the way you guys were raised, the integrity, the passion. When you talk about like true warrior, I feel like that's what we're missing, among Jews, especially in the
100%.
diaspora. In Israel, you've got warriors in the IDF. But here in San Diego, we've got, some guys who are kind of wimpy talking about some stuff, but it's time to become the tribesmen that we were. So,
yeah, I mean, I have to say, again, I don't want to get too much into this, but like we've always been our worst enemy, Jews. We're our worst enemy. It's whatever. I don't know. It's sad. It's very, very sad. But again, got to stick to the truth.
Love it. So stick to the truth. Hillel, thank you so much for being on the show. I appreciate you diving a little bit deeper than expected, man. I appreciate you. And for those of you who are listening, don't forget to join us in the Facebook group, Tribesmen, Jewish Men Leading, and stay tuned for the next episode. Hillel, I know that you've got, tons of places that people can find you. Where is your favorite place to be sharing content so people can go follow you and check you out?
I mean, I guess the easiest thing would be hillelfuld.com, because everything, all my links are over there. But feel free to connect with me on any platform. On Twitter, I'm Hillz Fuld, HILZ. FULD, and LinkedIn, Facebook, wherever. Just feel free to connect, and by all means shoot me a message and say you heard about, you met me here on the podcast. Love to hear it's always fun to hear where someone connects with you. But yeah, feel free to say hi. Don't just follow, say hello.
Love it.